Now, I know you've been doing your thing. You've been getting busy. You've been episode after episode podcasting, laying down your episodes and getting everything situated. And you've been doing exactly what the main people have been telling you. You put your episodes out each week. Your audio sounds super clean. The topics are solid, and people are listening. Like they're picking up on what you're talking about, right? But nobody's reaching out. Nobody's booking calls. And nobody's buying. And when I say that nobody's buying is because here's the thing. You could be having digital products that you're selling, services that you're selling, but nobody's tapping in. And I know you're sitting back wondering, well, what is going wrong? What am I missing? Well, the one thing that I'm about to tell you exactly what you're missing is, and I mean, you got to sit back and you got to ponder. It's not about being a guru. It's about helping you understand why your podcast is in the position that it's in. And trust me, it's not your content. It's not even your downloads, man. It's not the editing. It's right there in front of you. It's something right there in your show description that you've been completely overlooking, ignoring, playing it to the left. And it's costing you clients every single week. So stay with me, because we're going to get to the bottom of why you're struggling and why this can be fixed as we move forward. Let's rock out.
Welcome to Podcast for Profit, the show where podcasters become CEOs. I'm your host, Tony Porter, and every week I'm giving you the strategy, systems, and game you need to grow your audience, monetize your message, and build a seven-figure podcast business. No fluff, no cap, just real results. Let's get into it.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Podcast for Profits, the show where we stop trading time for likes and start turning your conversations into currency. Now, I'm your host, Mr. Tony Porter, and today we're going to dive in to one of the most undeniable, overslept or slept on pieces to your whole ecosystem. And that is why your podcast needs a sales page and not just a show page. Now, before we get started real quick, I need you to think about this. If you are an entrepreneur trying to build a business through podcasting, if you are a coach, if you are a marketer who is tired of doing content and ready to start owning your market and paying pay the attention, well, guess what? The strategies we're going to talk about today, what I'm going to break down today, is not only going to help you, and not only is it just not theories, but these are the exact frameworks that I've been using, the students that I work with have been using, and of course, some of my friends, because the top 1%ers use this all the single time. If you need to, it's not even a question. Here's what it is. This is what you're going to have to do in order for you to understand what the next step is for you. So here's what we're going to talk about. So what I mean by that is you need to get you a piece of paper and a pen, or just save the episode and so you can go back into it, because these things that we're going to discuss are so important. So what we're going to talk about, why your show description is one of the most unutilized conversational tools in the entire business. We're going to break down the 3 simple section framework that is out there. It's right there in front of you. And I call it the podcast sales page method. And then by the end of this particular episode that we're talking about today, you're going to know exactly how to rewrite your show page so it stops just describing your content and starts generating the actual clients and inquiries. So 3 things you're going to walk away with. 1, why your show page is leaking money right now. Like when you have an oil leak, and trust me, you don't even know that it's leaking. The second thing you're gonna walk away with is a 3-point structure every podcast sales page needs to do what? Convert listeners into those leads. And then thirdly, the exact copy moves you can use today to turn your show description into a client funnel entry point. You got that? So let's not play around. Let's talk about some pillars You know, we always gonna talk about the pillars over here. It's a must that we get it to the point because that's what this is built on. This is a conversation that's going to turn into currency. And all my good peoples who have tuned in today, I want to welcome you, man. I want to thank you for coming back. I want to thank you for rocking out with me. I think this is episode 90. Man, I'm 10 away from a milestone, and I'm loving it. All right. But my milestones are so important for me to reach that point is because I'm helping others get to where they need to be. I've struggled. I've had David Sands. I've had Donnie Wiggins. I've had Pat Flynn. I've watched all of these and I've gotten to the point. And then I started branching out because I wanted to know what other podcasts was doing. So my conversations became currency when I started following and paying attention to people like Joe Rogan, and Tim Ferriss, Amy Porterfield. All of these people have outstanding podcasts. All right. So let's talk about that pillar, man. You all ready? All right. So here's one thing you got to understand. The show page is your problem, but you've got a brochure and not a bridge. So again, your show page is your problem. And what you've got is a brochure and not a bridge. So I know you're sitting back wondering, okay, break that down to me. I'm glad you thought that out loud so I could hear you through the network fiber optic cables. Here's the truth most podcasters just don't want to hear. Your show page is not doing you any justice. It's not doing the work for your business. What it is, it's the most expensive decorative item that you have in your arsenal. It's information. It describes your podcast like a menu describes food. And I know you're like, what do you mean? Like, okay, so like you go to McDonald's. McDonald's will give you the ingredients of a Big Mac, right? McDonald's, 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a what? Sesame seed bun, correct? That's how your podcast show page is. It's telling you exactly what you do. That's it. But your podcast never makes anyone hungry enough to take action. All it's doing is basically telling people, this is what we do. Think about what most podcast show pages say. Something like, welcome to the, and it gives you the name of the show. Where we talk about your topic. And then it tells you who the audience is. And then it says new episodes every Tuesday. That's the whole thing in a nutshell. And I've laughed because, listen, I can attest to this because I used to do this until it was brought to my attention. And I was like, man, I got to wake up. But meanwhile, you've got somebody who just binged 3 of your episodes. They're fired up. They're resonating with your content. They go to your show page to learn more and they hit a dead end. No clear next step, no offer, no call to action. Just a list of episodes. It's crazy, right? I know it is. And I understand why it's crazy. You just lost a warm lead. See, you already nurtured them when you was doing your episode. They tuned in, so they binge watch, right? But you had no clear step to go to next. So that became an issue. And you never knew it. You never knew it happened. See, when I first started this thing, it was just like that. I thought it was my job. I really sat back and thought that podcasting was going to be my job. I was making great content and I believed in it. But like most people do, the content was good enough. The clients would just come. That was my thought process. I used to try to wrap my head around. I'd be like, man, I would sit there. You know how you put your hands behind your head and you got your eyes closed and you're thinking hard about it. That was me. Because see, I was dropping episode after episode when I first started this every single week, pouring my heart into every show. People were listening. I ain't going to take that away. But their calendar, man, bone freaking dry. My DMs were so quiet, you could hear a pin drop. And I kept asking myself, why is it not converting? It took me a minute to realize this, though. I didn't have the content problem. No, I had the system problem. My podcast alone was the open door with no sign above it. Think about that. People walked in, liked what they saw, and walked right back out because I never told them what to do next. Never told them. Not at all. So your show page is missing the sign. So here's the one thing I need you to lock in right now. A show page is not a show page. It's a sales page in disguise. Every platform where your podcast lives, Apple, Spotify, your website, gives you the prime real estate to tell potential clients, hey, here's who this is for. It's what you will get, and here's your next step. Period, point blank, man. That's it. Most podcasters waste that real estate on blind descriptions that sounds like they filled out a form. Nah. Your listeners are already sold on your voice. Your show page needs to close the deal. And that's what happened. I've seen clients, I've actually seen people completely transform their lead flow by doing nothing more than rewriting their show description using the framework I'm about to give to you. No new episode, no new ads, no new anything, just a smarter show page. That's how powerful this particular step is in your ecosystem. So what we got to do now, we got to talk about the 3-section podcast sales page method. Here's where we get into the actual system. I'm going to give it to you, right? Your 3 sections, you need them. And I want you to think about each section like it's a layered cake. Each layer moves your listeners closer to the action. It's just like, you know how you make those layered cakes? Or I give you one even better. Napoleon ice cream is 3 layers. You got chocolate, vanilla, strawberry. Depending on how you scoop it out, you go layer by layer until you reach your favorite flavor. And this is exactly how it is in podcasting. So this is what I call the podcast sales page method. Now you need to write this down. All right. See, section 1 is the hook. The hook. See, the hook is for who this is for. That's the first section of your podcast sales page. It's the targeting statement. It's designed to do one thing, make the right person feel like the show was built specifically for them. You feel me? All right. So, and the one thing that you need to understand is why this matters. When somebody lands on your show page, they're making a split decision. Right there is their reaction. Is this for me? If your description is vague and generic, they're going to bounce. If your description speaks directly to their exact situation, they get comfortable and they lean in. Now, here's the simple formula that you need to think about. Show name for the specific person who wants the specific result without specific frustration. Example for this is Podcast for Profit is for coaches, consultants, and service providers who want to generate 3 to 5 client inquiries every month from their podcast without chasing downloads, dancing on TikTok, or burning out making content that doesn't convert. So how does that hit different from a podcast about a podcast monetization? Think about it. I never described the show. I was describing the person. And when the right person reads that, they feel that. That's the hook. Now you got to get into section number 2. Now, section number 2 is the value stack. And this is basically telling them what they'll walk away with. See, this is where we tell you or tell the listeners what they're actually getting. This is your promise. This is where you turn a podcast into curriculum. Think of it like this. Your podcast isn't just entertaining, it's training. Every episode your listeners consume, is making them smarter, more capable, more equipped to get the results than anything. Your show page needs to do what? It needs to reflect that. So use 3 to 5 bullet points. Each bullet point is a specific outcome they'll gain from subscribing. Now, for Podcast for Profits, mine would look like something like this. How to build a content client generating system for your podcast. That's bullet point number 1. Bullet point number 2 is the magnetic messaging framework. How to speak to your ideal client so they self-select into your offer. All right. Number 3 is real monetization strategies for coaches with under 1,000 downloads. How to turn every episode into a lead generation asset. And then lastly, the exact CTAs to move listeners from interested to book. Now, that's a powerful value stack, and that's exactly what I use. Now, your show page doesn't just describe the show. It sells the subscription. It sells the service that you are providing. And here's where the trust transforms. When someone reads that list and goes, I need all of that. I need every single piece of that. They're not just listening anymore. They're starting to invest. They're committed. That's a different type of relationship. That's a listener becoming a future client. And then in section number 3, you got to have the CTA. That's the next step. Now, believe it or not, this is where 90% of podcasters leave money on the table. And if you follow me, you will hear me say that 100,000 times, because podcasting has become the new revenue stream. Most people used to want to be rappers. Now everybody wants to be podcasters or streamers or things like that. The money's there. But some of us are leaving it on the table. They do a decent job of describing their show. They might have a small list. Some episode highlights, man, it's probably right there. But they never, and I mean never, tell the listener what to do next. See, your show page needs that CTA. It needs a clear, specific, singular next step. Not follow us on social media, not check out our website. One action, one link, one invitation. Depending on where you are in your funnel, the CTA could be download the client generating podcast blueprint, link down in the description below, or it could be grab the free monetization jumpstart kit, link down in the description below. Book a free podcast profit strategy call. DM me profit on Instagram to get what? The full breakdown. Here's the thing. I just gave you 4 of my examples, but you got to pick one and make it easy to find. On Apple Podcasts, guess what you got to do? That goes in your show description. On your website, it's a button above the fold. On Spotify, it's the link section. All right. So you got to understand, this is where all of this begins and ends, with these 3 pieces of information. The point of this is this: every person who lands on your show page should leave knowing exactly what they can do next to go deeper with you. And here's the bonus move. When you nail sections 1, 2, and 3, or should I say when you nail sections 1 and 2, section 3 almost sells itself. Because by the time they get to the call to action, they're not thinking, should I do this? They're thinking, where do I click? That's the binge loop. You pull them in with a great hook and a stack of value. Then hit them with the one clean CTA at the exact right moment. Now, we got to get into pillar number 3. Pillar number 3, the copy that moves to make people convert. So let's lock in, man. So now that you've got your structure, but your structure without the language is just an outline, let me give you the actual copy moves, the language patterns that make your podcast sales page hit differently. I remember working with a client, one of my good friends, and he started out doing the fragrance reviews. He had a great podcast on it, real substance. But the show description was so basic. It was just a statement. It was professional sounding, but it was cold. I was like, bro, we got to fix this. We got to change this up. There was no emotion in it. There was no specifications of anything. And then the inquiries reflected 0, because guess what? Nobody was tapping in with it. We rewrote the show page using these 4 copy moves that I'm about to share with you, and changed his whole dynamic of his show. It changed how the show presented itself to the world. Within 30 days, went from 0 to hero. Got about 5 or 6 discovery calls, because now he's able to go and teach people how to rock the right fragrances at the right time for the right people. All right. So here are the 4 copy moves that you need to know about. Copy move number 1, speak to the pain, not the topic. Now, most show descriptions talk about what their podcast covers, The better move is to talk about what the problem it solves. A weak podcast about content marketing for coaches. Strong is if you've been creating content for months and nothing to show for it, this show will change that. Paying first copy makes the reader feel understood before they even hit play. Copy number 2. This is the second one. Use specific moments as proof. Vague language kills trust, man. Specific language builds it. Now, here's something weak for you. Weak, we cover monetization strategies. Strong, we show coaches how to generate 10K months using podcasts under 500 downloads. That 10K and under 500 downloads, those two numbers, that does the work. They signal that this is real, tested, and specific. Not theory, not inspiration, just results. Copy move number 3 is name your listeners. Don't say entrepreneurs. Don't say business owners. Name the exact person. So for me, when I was talking about my homeboy, his name is Andre Gardner. Now, for you, if you are a first-year life coach who's tired of creating content that doesn't convert clients, you could be anything in your niche, okay? The level of being specific feels like a direct message. The right person reads it and goes, that's definitely for me. I like that. So they subscribe immediately. And then number 4, close with energy, not logistics. Your CTA should, be like an invitation, not a task. Compare these. A weak one is subscribe for more content. I've done that here lately. A strong one is if you're ready to turn your podcast into a client-generating machine, hit subscribe and let's build something real together. The energy is contagious. The show page should close with the same conviction the show page should close with the same kind of conviction you bring to your best episode. When you pull all 4 of these moves together, put them in, plug them up, instead of the 3-section structure, you've got something most podcasters would never have. A show page that's actually working for your business while you doing what? Sleeping. That's what we turn conversations into currency looks like in a practice. All right. It's not just catchy, it's the system. Now, everything we just broke down is powerful, but I don't want you to just sit on it. I want you to start today. So here's how you go deeper. If you want the word-for-word template for the podcast sales page, the exact fill-in-the-blank framework we talked about, well, guess what? It's written at the top. We've already discussed it. Go back and listen, write it down, and then click on the link in the show description and get the Client Generating Podcast Blueprint. It's the free source. It's the free resource, man. It walks you through everything, every piece of your podcast monetization system, step by step, and shows you the right way to get things done. Go grab it. Again, there's no catch to it. The link is in the show description. And that's how you become a podcaster with a sales page instead of, guess what? A show page that doesn't do anything. All right. So that's a wrap for today's episode of Podcast for Profits. If you got value from this, share it. Send it to a podcaster in your circle who's been grinding but not converting. They need this. And if you haven't already subscribed to the show, tell your listeners, because we drop new episodes every single Monday, 6 o'clock a.m. We want to talk about helping you build revenue, generating revenue, and not just keep generating the content void. Remember, we're not here to build a hobby. We are here to build a machine. Then we turn conversation into currency. And now you have to build that page that starts that conversation for you. Again, I'm Tony Porter, and I'm going to see y'all in the next one, man. Peace.
Thanks for tuning in to Podcast for Profit. If you got value today, Share this episode with a creator who's ready to level up. And make sure you hit follow so you never miss the moves we're making. If you're serious about turning your podcast into a business, tap the link in the show notes to join the Solo Empire Network and get the tools, coaching, and community you need. I'll see you in the next episode. Keep going.